How is the
Hmm.
father's role different to the mother? What is the biggest challenge that parents experience?
Hmm.
What advice do you give to parents who are struggling with this idea that their children are so immersed in social media? It's lovely to have you with us today, Sidki Junaidi, parent and leadership coach. I want to ask you a question. The first one's going to be a bit of a challenge, or it's a challenge that a lot of parents experience, and that is, based on your experience, what is the biggest challenge that parents experience?
In terms of the biggest challenge that I can see within the context of living in Australia, one of the biggest one is perhaps balancing act between our home and our values and the challenges that we have in the society and being accepted by the society overall. And there's always that juggling between the two. How can I how can I maintain the values that I want to maintain at home as personal value as a Muslim families? And how can I then raise my kids so they can have that identity, strong identity, while contributing to the society overall.
Which
And
identity do you mean, I guess? Which
um, I
Muslim
guess
identity?
yeah, as a Muslim identity, we want to hold on to that identity, right? And then at the same time, I think most of us are using the way that we were, the style that we were being parented, our parenting legacy. So for example, as for myself, I was raised in Indonesia. So there's a lot of, during the early days of parenting, I was like, oh, how can I raise my kids? I have no, I'm using the style of parenting that I learned back home. It's totally different. And the way that I want to embrace my parenting with my kids. Right? So there's a lot of that juggling in that
Juggling,
sense.
and I guess maybe a lot of unlearning to do as well, isn't there? Because I can relate to what you're saying. My parents migrated from Turkey. There was a cultural difference I felt because they were from a Turkish background. I mean, I'm from a Turkish background, but I was born here and grew up here. But then there was also a language difference. Well, as in I can speak fluent Turkish, but their first language is Turkish. My first language is English. So how do we navigate around these kind of differences when the parent and the child are from these different, I guess, environments? We grew up in different environments.
Well, one of the things that I notice and also try to learn within my own family is focusing on the nurturance of the relationship first. The language will be differ, and there's and all that kind of thing. But the thing is, when we have the relationships aspects of it, where the parents is really just being there for the children and really enjoying the time with the kids, and nurturance of that safety and secure aspect of that relationships, more so of that focus on building that fundamental of parenting and the parent-child relationships, which is the nurturance of we as a parent to become a safe platform for the kids to come back to whenever they feel that they're being challenged in the outside world. So I think I love the analogies that one of the parent coach that I listened to yesterday, that the intentions of us as a parent, the mission of us as a parent is to strengthen the wings of our children, so it's time for them to leave our nest, they can fly on their own and build their own nest. Parents, we come with certain expectations, whether we are whether we are raised overseas, internationally, whatever the case may be, and then we come to Australia, we have a certain expectations how the kids would love to, how the kids will grow up, right? And it's usually it's the gap between the reality and expectations that creating a lot of tension.
Yeah, can
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just pick you on that? Because that's a
yeah.
bit of a challenge where your child could be doing things that you don't agree with, disapprove of, but yet we need to make the home a safe and secure and loving environment. It can be hard to sometimes bring those two together because it might be like, oh, I wish you didn't do that. And, oh, that goes totally against my values. How do you reconcile those two?
And this is where the parents as the leaders to elevate ourself, right?
Mm.
As I mentioned, that there is a gap between the expectations and the reality. The reality sometimes is different. The reality of the child, of where he or she is right now in terms of their psychological development, the reality of the world around them, the environment around them. And we have such a different expectations. Now, what I usually like to do for myself as my personal practice, and I also encourage my clients to do it, is have that self-awareness whenever that there's I become upset when the child doesn't do as what I expect them to do. Then okay, I need to take a step back and take a space, grounded myself, right? Grounded myself in terms of make dhikr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ya Allah, and then take a deep breath. And then whatever the gap in between the two, we need to have that, creating that elevations, that stepping stool to go to stepping stone to go to the next level, right? And then also one of the fundamental key is to always connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that sense, that hey, in our dua, ya Allah, please allow my kids to thrive so I can have, to bridge the gap between their reality and expectations, right? To help them grow. One thing that we need to remember is we focus on the process and Allah will give the outcome. Sometimes we fix on outcome. I need to make them this way. I need to make them that way. We forgot that, we focus on the nurturance and Allah will give the outcome.
That's a good point. I want to now steer the direction towards, because we're talking about parenting generally, but I want to steer the direction towards fatherhood. Well, how is the father's role different to the mother? Sometimes I don't think that's clear in a family environment. So how are they different?
Yeah. For us, in my understanding of our deen and whatnot, is the mothers are the one who provide the nurturance. They are the one who is the primary caregivers for the children, right? And they are the first teachers. They're first guiding the children, and the fathers are the qawam, right? They are the protector. They are the provider and the leader. Now, sometimes we learn from our past history in terms of what does the leaders look like, what is a protector looks like, what does a provider look like, right? And at times we are just limiting the role as a leader, as a provider, for example, that we only provide rizq, material rizq, right? But rizq is much wider concept than that. Rizq is including material and non-material, right? So the provisioning of rizq in terms of belonging, love needs, and all that. So if we extend that to Maslow hierarchy of needs, for example, we focus on, as a leader, then we focus on the bottom side, is the physiological needs, right?
Roof over
That's
their
the
head,
food, the water, the warmth, the rest, the roof over our heads, and all that kind of stuff, right? So a lot of fathers is providing that, alhamdulillah, right? And then they also provide the safety need, the security needs of the family. So they make sure they are the protector whenever someone comes to threaten our family. Then the fathers are the one who provide that protection.
Sure, that usually comes instinctually.
Instinctually, that will come, right? But then, if we see that there's a much higher needs than that. That's the first one is the basic needs. Then the second level, on the top level, is the psychological needs, the needs of belongingness, the love and the nurturance, right? And then there's the needs of esteems and self-actualizations, whatever the case is. So it's much more than that. So children usually ask these three questions, or ourselves as a human being. Children will ask, am I loved in the family? Am I loved by my father? And am I good enough in the eyes of my father? And my mother as well, but I'm talking about from father's perspective. And do I belong in this family? Do I feel that my father feels, am I accepted by my dad in this family system? And what I also like to also then extend that in terms of the leadership skill is, as a qawam, as a provider, leader, etc. We tend to also focus on one style of leaderships.
And there's many, right?
And there's many style of leaderships. And I'm working with a lot of leaders. So there's the authoritarian, there's authoritative style of leadership. If I'm following the work of John C. Maxwell in terms of the 5 levels of leaderships, and I'm going to try to take it to the parenting elevations of leaderships. The first level of leaderships, according to John C. Maxwell, is you get the leadership by title.
Right.
So Allah has
Okay.
gifted you the title as a
Mm.
father. But then if you stop at that, then you haven't elevated yourself as a leader. The second level of leadership, according to John C. Maxwell, is you focus on your relationships with the people around you.
Right.
So again, coming back to that basic of what we talked about this earlier, that the relationships is the basis of
Mm.
you. If we want to influence the outcome of our family, if we want to influence the outcome of the people that we are leading, right? So, but what I mean by that is when we focus on relationships, is we focus on for example, can the family members around me, they provide and they show and express their emotional needs in a safe space, right? So sometimes we, as a again coming back from the historical learning, is we don't like a certain kind of emotion that are being expressed, so we shut them down. So the children will not feel safe. The people that we lead in the organization will not feel safe of expressing their challenges in the workplace, right? And the third level of leaderships is production. Or what I mean by production is you increase the outcome of your the one who you're living with. So if I take it to the parenting style or the fathers is how you can make the family to be more productive. How can you have a critical conversations with the family around you, the family members around you, so you don't shy away from difficult conversation. When your child comes to you, hey dad, what is it? What's this about this ism and schism? What is it about this LGBTQ? Oh, dad, can I
Drop out of
paint
school.
my hair blue? Yeah, or drop out of school. Can I paint my hair blue? And then you say, oh no, I don't want avatar in my household. You shut them down immediately, right? So you want to be able to hold these critical conversations in your household, and that's when you elevate your leadership skill. You approach that conversation through curiosity. You tell me what's going on. Why are you asking this way? Why are you asking that way? Tell me what's coming into my mind, right? So those are the 3 levels, and the next level will be more on the side of how can I enable my kids to thrive, to find out what is the potential that Allah has gifted them in their hearts. So then I become that enabler for them to succeed in their life and the hereafter.
So this sounds fascinating, and I'm just thinking about, how many members of our community would have the fathering skills of even level 3? It just, and not just in the Muslim community, I would say wider society, but we're talking here about mainly Muslim community. Like not many people would have these skills. Where are we going wrong, basically? And how do we, like these skills don't come naturally, I think, to a lot of people. So what do we do?
I think it's come with self-awareness. 2 ways of us learning. There's 2 primary pathway of learning. One is a conscious learning. The other one is a subconscious learning. Conscious learning means just like you want to expand yourself or improve our driving skills. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer, whatever the case may be. And then you go a pathway of conscious learning. Right. And then you basically make a conscious decisions that I want to embrace that particular skill.
Yeah.
And then you go through all that learning process. You go to high school and university, TAFE, whatever the case may be. And then there's another pathway of learning. The other pathway of learning, and much more significant, is the subconscious way of learning, where whatever that is being experienced during our childhood, and especially during childhood between 0 to 7, because that is the imprint years. Those are the ones that determine the way that we relate with other people, the way that we relate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way that we relate to ourselves, and the way that we relate to the world around us. The parenting relationship is the first and the blueprint of our interpersonal relationship moving forward. Now, how do we overcome that? Having that awareness. Hey, I've been having a lot of this looping problems in my life. What's going on? That is usually because of that subconscious learning that we have. The learning, it's no longer serving us to whatever shape or form. And how we can, and then realize, okay, now I need to upgrade myself in this particular skill. How can I do that? But it needs to come from within, not from the force or from the outside. If that makes sense, hopefully it makes sense.
It does. So I guess the least we can do with both types of learning you mentioned is that we need to firstly spark the desire within fathers to want to be a better father. And that it's going to be obviously to the benefit of them and to their children. I guess once you realize that there's a gap, it's like what you mentioned with engineering. You know you're not an engineer. You have that self-awareness, right? So you know you're not an engineer and you need to study and do certain things to become one. So I guess, I mean, when someone's a father or a mother, they're doing their best. We've got to give that to them. But to say, well, how can I become a better father? I know I can become a better father or mother. I guess being aware of that gap seems to be an important part of growth without being too discouraging, I guess, to the father, because you wouldn't want a father to feel like, oh, I've got no hope. I'm just a terrible father.
Yes.
I'm guessing that could be too detrimental as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Again, it's our self-talk, the one that prevent us to move forward a lot of the time. But the thing is, we are not our self-talk, and the history is not our destiny. That we can change the destiny that we want to move forward, right? Yeah. So we can change the way that we parent. Alhamdulillah, in the past year or so, I've been having a lot of conversations with new fathers who want to improve their skills. They want to be. I think this is a generation thing where, how can I do better in the way that I relate to my children? So I'm very happy to see the change. I'm very delighted to see that, and and they're looking for ways to be more present within their children's life. Alhamdulillah.
That's good. That's good that there's that self-awareness, because to me, that sometimes that unlearning because of the way we parented. I know I'm honing on this maybe because I'm a victim of it. No, not so a victim, but I see it in myself. You know, when you sometimes say things and you're like, oh my, that's what my mum used to say. And, you don't even realize it was there. But then when you're a parent and you're finding yourself saying the very same words that your parents did, and if they were good words, it's like, wow, fantastic. I've got good templates or a good narrative in my head. But if it's not, it's like, it's a bit of effort, isn't it, to say, wait, that's what what my parents said. Yeah, they did their best. I'm not going to bag my parents, but I need to do better because I should know better.
The one thing that came up to my mind is this, right? Approach that conversation with compassion in terms of the internal self-talk. Our parents did the best that they can do with the resources and the tools that they have. They experiencing a different kind of life. They're experiencing, a different environment. We don't know the challenges that they face, for example, with your parents in Turkey. I don't know the challenges that my parents face in Indonesia, right? And the dynamic is totally different. When we come into that realization, that's the awareness piece, where, hey, why come the words that I learned from my childhood is the one that come up from my mouth? What's going on here? How can I make this better? And then and sometimes we go into the self-deflating self-talks in terms of, man, I'm just a bad father, I'm just a bad mother, and all that stuff, right? Whatever the self-deflating thoughts. And again, as I mentioned in the point earlier, that we are not our self-talk. We can change that.
I like that. We're not our self-talk.
We are not our emotions. We are not our self-talk. We can change our identity. And always hone into this piece of, nurture our heart first to be closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Becoming a heart-centered parents, becoming a heart-centered leaders. So then when we are nurturing our hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then every step of the way we are being guided by Allah,
Mm, mm,
every step of the way. And then you will, and Allah will put you with forward with people that is going to help you in your journey to become closer to
mm.
Allah. How you can journey to, to help you and your family to become closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala.
Yeah, I'm very conscious of that point myself that, sometimes we see bad habits, say, in our children, and then, but we don't see those bad habits or other bad habits in ourselves. So, a
Mm,
lot of times bad habits or behaviors are picked up, even sometimes subconsciously. So I think
mm,
your point about we need to develop ourselves because, if we're
yeah.
doing things, if we're, losing our temper unnecessarily,
Mm,
or we're on our phone, 24/7, and
mm,
then we're telling our child to get off their phone. We might justify in our head, might think, well, I'm an adult, I can do it. But hey, your child is seeing you do what you're doing, and they often mimic the parent, don't they?
yes. Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. Children learn from our behavior more than the words that we say. I remember when someone says, "Oh, my," when we parents say, for example, "Hey, don't smoke," don't do cigarettes and all that kind of stuff. And this is coming a lot from Indonesia because cigarettes is not healthy for you. And then the parents themselves are the one who's smoking, right? So it's
Yeah.
not healthy. So so
It's like, don't make
so
the mistake, our mistake. But
yeah, yeah,
it's like, well,
exactly.
you're not stopping your mistake, but you're asking me not to make the same
Yeah,
mistake, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is hard, right? It is a challenging for us. As I mentioned earlier, in terms of the subconscious learning, um, children will learn, for example, the emotional reactions of our parents, and sometimes they can swing from, they can swing. So, for example, the way that the parents express anger is through rage,
Mm,
right? And that's not healthy because
mm,
anger is, you can express your emotions from one side to another, one spectrum to another spectrum.
other.
You can swing
Mm,
between that side, right? But the thing is, the child, it will either, I don't like anger, I don't like rage because that's how it's being
yes.
exemplified into my life. So
Yes.
what's happening is either they will embrace it. If they say they don't like it, they will go to the other side. They will suppress it so much that they
Mm,
don't express their anger. They don't even
mm,
express their boundaries. If someone's stepping into their
mm.
boundaries, they will say, I can't, I don't want to express it because I'm not comfortable with it. Or they will embrace it fully. They will be enraged by that as well. So,
That's a good point. Yeah,
yeah.
I find sometimes children saying, I don't want to be like my mother or father in a particular area, like you said, with anger. And it could
Mm,
be quite a big reaction, where they go,
mm,
or they embrace it, or they react to it as in, I'm going to completely abandon it. So I guess what we're saying here is that it's really important for parents to strive, and I say strive because we're not
mm.
perfect, to try to
Yes.
exemplify how to express these emotions, with our children, so that
Yeah.
they can learn from
Yeah.
it.
I always mention, in the workplace, that with the leaders that I work with, or leaders, you have a leadership shadow that is very influential in the way that your team interact. Your leadership shadow is
Absolutely.
key. How you behave, how you engage with your team, and sometimes then, uh, a team will feel more safe in one than compared to the other ones, even though we
Mm,
we work in the same company, right? So just be mindful of, for parents, in terms of what is the leadership shadow that you cast upon your family,
mm,
and how you behave and how you conduct yourself is really key in the way that the family dynamics going to shape.
the dynamics, and I guess even the culture, because you have work
Yeah,
cultures, and
yeah,
yeah, so they create a particular culture, and then people try to conform, or they don't like it, or they love it and they embrace it. So I guess it's same in the
mm,
house as well. If they like the
yes, yes.
culture or that the leadership that they're seeing with their dad, then they're going to be
Mm.
comfortable there. What are some lessons that you've learnt about fatherhood that you would want to share with fathers?
One is understanding our parenting legacy, getting to know
Wow.
ourselves, how we will be being parented, because it's so influential. that we don't even know that we are casting that with our the way that we were being parent now, and understand that every emotion, every triggers, whatever the case may be, it's an opportunity for self growth if
Mm.
we put the spotlight in our own self. So if we put the spotlight in our own self in terms of, okay, what is this what is it that Allah is trying to show me in this moment? Why am I feeling so angry? Why am I
Mm.
feeling so sad or feeling disappointed, or whatever the case may be? Why is this
Mm.
problem is keep looping again and again and again? Why is, for example, why is my marriage breaking down? Why is my children is moving away from me? I feel that I'm being distant from my kids. That is an opportunity for
Yes.
us to self-reflect and look ourselves in the mirror. What is it going on? And Allah says, right, in terms of that, Allah will not change the conditions of a people until they change what is in within themselves. So we need to look at ourselves first. So that is the
Mm.
first and primary key in terms of my personal learning, and that the thing that I can share. And
Mm.
then basically the second one is, fathers, you are the leaders in the family. Be mindful of the leadership shadow that you cast. If we want to be a better leader, and we want to leave a legacy that is impactful in our life, in our children's life, then let's take in the journey to become a better father and a better leader.
And I guess, with that, I would think fathers should think, well, if I don't feel like I'm up to that role, but you are in that role, you are a
Mm.
father, then upskill. Like that's what we do in the
Yes,
work environment, don't we? When we're put into a
yes,
position, say promoted, and fatherhood is a promotion, I feel, in life, because and
yes,
and motherhood,
yes.
it's such a blessing to be a mother or father.
It is.
If you've
It
been,
is.
if you were blessed with that promotion of that, having that role, then upskill. If you don't have those skills, then upskill. That's what we need to do. Would you
Exactly.
agree?
I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
We are being gifted by Allah, as a parent, as a father, as a mother. I see there's a lot of individuals that I know in my life that they are, Allah challenged them in different ways, right?
Mm,
And we are challenged in different ways. So upskill
certainly.
ourselves. Allah has gifted you this. Allah has gifted you your children, and we're giving the amana to raise our kids. How
Mm,
we are going to be responsible. We are going to be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about our kids.
yeah. With blessings comes responsibility, and with responsibility comes accountability. So we have to be conscious
Inshallah.
of that. It's
Yes.
it's not a free ride. Not to make it
Yes.
sound like too much of a burden, but it's with every responsibility. Okay, I wanted to
Yes.
ask you, with our Prophet, peace be upon him, he was a father. We take him as our role model as Muslims. I guess, do we know enough of him as a father, and how good are we at applying him as a role model, as a father in our lives in today's world?
So when I read hadith and when I read the stories of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as a father, as a leader overall,
Mm.
and it's coming back to that nurturance of relationships with each and every person that he touched upon in his life. And even his Sahaba feel that they are the most important person in their life.
Yes, I was just thinking that too.
Yeah. So when he sees a someone who doesn't give hugs to their kids, they will ask,
Mm.
why don't you give hugs? Don't you want Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to be caring for you as well, right? So there's the aspect that's coming back to that and coming back to integrations of that nurturance of relationships. The nurturance of relationship is much deeper. If you want to connect, I always say this in every single aspect of relationship. If you want to connect someone to their heart space and their emotional space, then
Mm.
speak and treat them from your heart space and your emotional space.
Beautiful.
If we can continue relating to each other through that logical mind and logical thinking, your conversations are going to get boring very easily, right? It's
Mm.
going to be very logical, very dry, and all that kind of stuff. But then relationships takes nurturance of that deeper level, right? So,
Mm.
in my view, I think we have gap between where we are right now and how we can take it to the way that Rasulullah SAW exemplified role modeling in his life as a father, as a parent, as a leader in the house.
Yeah,
Martha.
and I guess no, thank you. That's very valuable, especially speaking from the heart to heart. It's something we just don't think about, I feel, or we assume we're doing it, but really a lot of the time, it requires, I guess, a level of kind of vulnerability when it comes to my mind, or because you've got
Mm.
to be open with your emotions. And a lot of
Yes.
time we're living in some, I guess, where fathers can't show emotions, and they have to look tough and
Yeah.
can't
Yes.
express their love, like that example you gave during our prophet's time of the man
Mm.
who's like,
Mm.
I have so many kids and I don't show them mercy, and he made it sound like it was something he was proud of.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess it takes vulnerability, and vulnerability takes courage.
It is not easy to show our vulnerability in our inner world to anyone,
In
right?
a world, yeah.
Um, in our inner, we see it as a weakness if we open ourselves too much. But I think I always remind myself of the beauty of the story with Rasulullah and Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and Khadija, where he was afraid and then he came back to his
Mm,
home, and then found Khadija, and then he rests his head on Khadija's eyes, and then just being vulnerable, being open, not showing, oh, what happened to you? He doesn't show, he didn't show, what happened to you? Oh, I'm okay, I'm good. And
mm.
then
Nothing,
he hides
nothing, nothing happened. Yeah, it
nothing,
wasn't that kind of
nothing.
thing.
I'm
Yeah.
good. No, vulnerability is a source of strength, but we share
Mm,
our vulnerability with people that we trust, that will
mm-hmm,
give and hold that safe space for us.
mm,
That we, when we show our bad side or the vulnerable side, that weakness side, that he or she can still love us for who we are. Because sometimes we don't
mm-hmm.
want to show that
Yeah.
mask. We still sometimes when we go to our home, we still put that mask on, the mask of a martyr, the mask of a
Mm,
joker. The mask of a martyr, hey, I can do this and all that stuff, right? The mask of a joker, hey, you joking quite a lot in the family, but then you don't show your true self.
mm.
Again,
And
children, yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
and this could be, I guess, because as a child, when they did, or child or teenager, especially boys, if they did cry or if they did, look sad, it would be like, toughen up, big boys
Mm.
don't cry. So they've learned that to be loved or to be accepted, that they have to
Yes.
be tough. So they've got those kind of
Yeah.
conditioning. A lot of parents struggle with social media and their children.
Mm.
Uh, we're living in a time where, almost every child's got access to a phone, especially when they're older, I suppose. But some kids have phones when they're much younger.
Mm.
What advice do you give to parents who are struggling with this idea that their children are so immersed in social media?
Yeah, very beautiful questions. And one of the interesting part is there's two things that come to my mind. One of the interesting part is even the leaders in this technology world, the industry leaders, the one who created the social media and
Mm.
the gadgets, they limit their access, the children access to the social media and to
Wow.
these gadgets, right? You see, you'll see it on documentaries and whatnot on Netflix and YouTube. You'll see that they actually limit this for their own kids. So we will become the consumer of their own products. Limit that to your own children.
Mm.
Limit that access to the best of your ability. If there's no crucial need for accessing social media and gadgets, limit them. And then, especially if they are still very young, I'm talking about under 10, limit
Mm.
them as much as possible. Create boundaries and standards in your household. Those are privileges that you can control. Those are not the rights of the children. So we need to be very clear in terms of what is the standard that you want to put forward in the household in terms of accessing social media and the gadgets. Now, the other part is I was, reading a book by Gordon Neufeld and Gabor Mate about hold on to your kids in terms
Mm.
of why parents need to matter more than their peers. When as
Mm.
they grow up, as children grow up as a teenagers and above, they will start looking for to be accepted by people other than their family. Remember
That's
the
true.
three questions that the children will ask: Am I loved? Do I feel belonged? Am I good enough? They will start asking the questions with their peers. If
Mm-hmm.
the fundamental relationship that we have in our household, in our family, is not strong enough, then they will look elsewhere for that validations. They will look
Mm.
elsewhere for that love and belonging and that enoughness, right? And if the parents do not give them, then they will attach to that peers. Social
Mm.
media is the bridge to fulfill that need.
Yeah, so I guess if they're attached to if they've got that connection with their parents, they would have less reliance on being accepted by social media.
Yeah.
And because I guess to have that connection with friends, you need to be on social media because that's such a common ground at the moment. That's how I understood what you said. Yeah.
And sometimes it's not, they will be connected not only with their friends at school, they will create that extended networks of,
Mm.
friendships. They will communicate, but they will not connect. They will communicate, they will
Yeah,
interact in terms
yeah,
of engagement, but they don't connect from their hearts,
that's
from their
right.
heart space, their emotional space.
Yeah. And I guess sometimes even, social media influencers in their mind is their friend, although they're not really friends, but it's the people that they look up to. They want to be like them. And so
Mm,
that's where, again, that sense of, who, if I be like them, I will be loved because they are
mm,
loved, they are popular. Whereas if they've got that connection with their parents, it's like that's truly what matters. Everything else,
mm,
it's
mm.
superficial. So they could
Yes.
probably distinguish between the two better if they've got that strong connection in the home.
Yeah. And one of the things about social media, right? Social media works by algorithms. The
Yes.
more the feed that will come into your social media feed are the one that has a lot of likes. And if the one
Mm.
that has a lot of likes are the one that flaunted a certain lifestyle, they will
Mm-hmm.
emulate to be wanting to emulate that certain lifestyle. And the certain lifestyle is not for everyone. It's
Mm.
just a niche of a lifestyle that has spectrum of different things, right? and,
Yes.
and then they're like, okay, how can I go there? How can I be that way? How can I be that person? And then they will try to emulate the way they dressed, the way they talk. So they will change everything. So
That's a good
I come
point.
back to that in terms of, you are our mindset going to be influenced by the five people that we are sharing, that we is going to be influenced to us by five
Mm.
people around us.
Mm.
If social media is one of them,
Mm.
then it will influence the way that our mind works, our mindset.
Okay, my last question, I suppose, is there one last tip you would like to give to fathers, something that, you haven't had a chance to say, or something that you find yourself often saying to fathers?
I always remind myself of this hadith: when a man dies, his good deeds come to an end, except on three things: on ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge that is impactful to ourselves and others, and the last one is the righteous child that is who will pray for them, or who will pray for him after he dies, right?
Mm.
And that is an outcome. What is the process to get there? What is the process to get there? So focus on that process, on how you can nurture that. First is always about the nurturance of the relationships with our kids, um, and how we can leave a legacy that is going to be good for us in this world and also for our hereafter. Because the essence is we want to be with our family and the one that we loved,
Mm.
also in Jannah, in Jannah, in Allah's Jannah. That's our
Mm.
ultimate destinations. So don't forget that destination.
I think that I really like that, particularly how you said focus on the process, because even with the other two, one is beneficial knowledge. Take that as an example. To give beneficial knowledge, you have to have that knowledge. You have to learn that knowledge. Then you've got to
Yes.
identify people to be able to give that knowledge. And then you pass on the knowledge, and then your book of deeds remains open. I guess same with the
Mm,
righteous child. To be able to raise a righteous child, you've got to learn how to achieve that and work on it,
mm.
contribute towards it, put the effort in. It doesn't just happen like, by you
Yeah.
saying to your child, I want you to be righteous. Just like,
Yes.
when you're teaching someone, you don't say, I want you to learn, this textbook. You got to teach them. So it's a process.
It's
I think that's a very good
it
point,
is.
and we often
It
forget that with
is.
parenting.
One of the things that sorry, on that point there, I listened to one of the a video yesterday on family by a neurologist, and he produced a book about parenting, and he said, if you want your kids to embrace the value that you want them to embrace, the one that you want to pass on, then nurture that relationship with them first. It's
Mm.
always that connect before you correct, connect before you set
Mm.
boundaries and directions, and so it's always that is the fundamental piece.
Connect before you correct. Very, very true. Yeah. And that's probably a
Mm.
good point to stop here or to end the. I mean, this is a conversation that that can go for hours, but I really, I really appreciate your contribution, your insights, your wisdom, Sidki. I much appreciate it. And maybe we can have another conversation another time. Thank you.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Barakallah fiqh. Jazakallah khair.
Yeah.
Thank you, sister.